Your full name?
Carl R Gregory,
Where were you born?
Asheville, North Carolina.
How old were you when you joined the military?
I was just finished college, so I was about 22, probably 22.
What branch did you join?
The U.S. Air Force.
What did you do before joining?
I was in college. I went into the military just 2 weeks out of college.
Why did you join?
I just thought it was a good opportunity. At that time, the draft was in effect, and I knew when I left college I was subject to being drafted. And there was a recruiter at the college where I was and offered me an opportunity to get in aviation cadets training. And that was a great opportunity. I would make $50 a month while I was learning how to fly.
What'd you think of the draft?
Well, it was universal. It was just something we did back in those days.
Did you approve or disapprove with it?
Well, it's not a matter of being for or against. It was something everybody had to deal with.
Okay.
We'd been at war since World War II and on and off, and so it was just part of the system back then. That draft went out probably around the 70s, early 70s, probably.
When did you go to Vietnam?
1968 was my first time, and I went again in probably twice after that.
Did you have a family?
I did. Your mother and her sister and her brother and my lovely wife, my beautiful wife.
What were their thoughts on the war?
Well, the kids grew up with it. It was hard on my wife because I kept picking up and leaving at inappropriate times. You don't ask when you're going to go. You go when they tell you to go.
Yeah.
It was rough. It was rough on her.
Was it difficult for you?
Not as rough as for a grunt on the ground. My living conditions were
A little bit
very
better.
fair. I slept in air conditioning instead of in a tent, and I didn't get shot at to know it. I did get shot at, but not to know it.
What plane did you fly?
First time I went, I flew what they call it. What do you call it? Help me, someone. 18, a Piper Cub. It was Super Cub. I was a forward air controller, and we'd fly low to the ground so we could supposedly see things on the ground and direct airstrikes.
No.
So I was flying a slow airplane. It was very slow, slowest thing they had.
Were you scared?
Scared of what? Flying? No, you didn't. No.
Since it'd be easier to shoot at?
Well, I see what you mean. No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Were you able to spot the Vietnamese while in the aircraft?
Very few,
Few?
maybe vehicles.
Did you fly at night?
Yeah, I'm sure that
How did you spot them?
we looked for caves and tunnels,
Okay.
revetments.
Did you ever have a close call?
Oh, well, I crashed an airplane once. Does that count? Well, it was close. Most people die when they crash an airplane. I had just taken off and the power failed, and I
How did
just
you crash?
was on the ground in an instant.
What kind of plane was that?
The Piper Cub.
So it was just you in there?
Me and another controller. Yeah.
How were you treated when you returned?
I knew things could be bad, so I avoided opportunity for something to happen. When I came back from Vietnam, I went to the airport, got on a plane, went to North Carolina and rejoined my family. I wasn't in a position for people to talk bad about me. I knew it was a possibility, but I was able to avoid it.
How did you feel about the hippie movement?
The hippies? How do you think I'd feel about a hippie?
I didn't like the hippies.
Well, I didn't either. But I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You're talking about the people who opposed the war.
Yeah.
Well,
Them.
that's just like the anti-war protesters from Vietnam. From the Iraq War.
Protesting against the war was a new thing back then.
Well, I avoided the issue more or less, so I don't. The ones in this war got in the news a whole lot.
What was the most difficult part in the war?
Being away from my family.
Yeah.
Being over there without being able to do anything. I will say, halfway through my tour, I got to go to Hawaii for a few days. My wife met me over there. That was a wonderful experience.
Did you visit Pearl Harbor?
Yes, for sure.
Good. Good.
You ought to do that if you ever have a chance.
Do you regret participating in Vietnam?
Well, liking or disliking or enjoying or regretting doesn't enter into it. When you're in the military, you do what you have to do. If they say go, I'm sorry it turned out the way it did. And I'm sorry I caused bombs to be dropped on people. But if I chose the military as a career, that's what I chose to do.
Were there a lot of people who were unhappy being there?
Everybody, all of us. Nobody was really enthusiastic about the war. Didn't think we really made the right decision going in, but nobody refused to fight or anything like that.
How long did you think the war in Vietnam would last?
I had no way of knowing. I got there right after Tet, which was the Tet Offensive, and it had just about ended when I got there, and there was no slowing down. What Tet showed the U.S. was their ability to stand and fight instead of hitting and running.
Oh, yeah.
They stood and fought, and after it was over, nothing changed. Everybody was talking about how we won the Tet Offensive. We didn't win nothing. All it did was show us that they could stand up.
What other planes did you fly in Vietnam?
Well, my second tour, I was in a headquarters facility, so I didn't fly at all. My third tour, I was flew a B-52 on what they call arc light missions.
What is an arc light mission?
Well, what we were doing at the time I was there was earlier in the war, the B-52s bombed North Vietnam, but while I was there wasn't any bombing in North Vietnam, and we were bombing in what they call the choke points, where the trails cut from North Vietnam into Laos, and had these steep mountains they had to go through, and the trails cut between them, and we were bombing the trails over and over and over again.
To prevent them from making their way to Laos?
Well, they did.
Yeah,
They went through anyway.
You mentioned that a lot of you didn't agree with the war, but it was a duty.
Well, now remember, we were military. When you're in the military, you just do what you have to do.
Do what you're told.
How did you feel returning with how soldiers were being
Well,
treated at that point in time?
Like JJ mentioned, didn't appreciate the hippies and that attitude, but that we live in America and people can speak their piece. Today we have a lot of opposition to the war we're in now. But the people over there just do what they have to do.
How many people did you have in your B-52?
6.
6.
Pilot, co-pilot, navigator, weapons operator who controlled the dropping the bombs, and two defensive people. A tail gunner who was in the tail end of the aircraft where everybody else was up front, and an ECM operator who dropped flares and electronic countermeasures to counter other aircraft
Other aircrafts?
and radar.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the military?
Well, I'll say this, the military is a good career for someone who doesn't have a good job or know what he wants to do. You're going to get trained. You're going to learn discipline. I think, overall, I have a good opinion of the military, being in the military. Go for it.
How did you spend your free time?
In Vietnam? Well,
Did you drink?
no, I didn't drink. A lot of people did.
Did you smoke cigars?
No. Did I smoke cigarettes then?
Nothing.
What did you do to pass the time?
I did a whole lot of recording. You know, I told you we had it better than the Army people living in tents. Well, it's very hot in Vietnam. 365 days out of the year, it was very hot. And when I had opportunity, there was a place to go, I would go to tape albums, reel to. Yeah, there was 8-track. A funny story. I was a fan of Joan Baez, and she was very anti-war, very outspokenly anti-war, and I recorded some of her albums. And I didn't know that what I was recording was being played in the bar next door. And this guy came in and interrupted me and said, "When are we going to get through with Joan Baez?" He was like a wet hen.
I'll jump in my corner.